When people saw Daniela and her husband, Richard, together, they admired them. Daniela was calm, graceful, and wealthy, not the loud type of rich woman who looked down on others. Her late father had left her a successful construction company, several properties, and enough money to live comfortably for the rest of her life. But Daniela was humble. She believed marriage meant trust. So, after marrying Richard, she handed most of the company operations over to him. "Run it as if it's yours," she would always tell him with a smile. And Richard would hold her hand gently and reply, "Everything I do is for us." But those words were lies wrapped in sweetness. Richard had entered Daniela's life with hidden greed in his heart. Though he lived well because of her, drove for cars, wore expensive suits bought with her money, and enjoyed the respect her family name brought him. But he was never satisfied. He wanted everything, not just access to her wealth ownership. He secretly hated the fact that the company still carried Daniela's father's name. He hated signing documents where Daniela was listed as the owner. Deep inside him grew bitterness and pride, and unknown to Daniela, Richard already had another family in another state, a woman named Sandra, and a little girl he introduced everywhere as his daughter. Sandra knew exactly what kind of man Richard was, but she didn't care. Together, they planned patiently, like hunters, waiting for the right moment. Their goal was simple: take everything from Daniela and abandon her completely. One evening, Richard returned home, acting excited. "Daniela," he called dramatically, "there's a huge contract opportunity abroad. If this works, the company will grow 3 times bigger." Daniela's eyes lit up with joy. "Really?" "Yes. But I'll need to travel for some days." She hugged him tightly. "I'm proud of you." The next morning, Richard set off on his journey, while Daniela saw him off on her way to work. That night, Daniela stayed awake, praying for her husband's success. She knelt beside the bed, asking God to protect him and bless the contract. Meanwhile, Richard was not abroad. He was in another state, inside a luxurious apartment, drinking wine with Sandra while their daughter played nearby. The 3 of them laughed and celebrated as if Daniela no longer existed. "Very soon everything will belong to us," Sandra said. Richard smirked proudly. He had already begun changing important documents secretly. Even worse, he had listed his daughter as next of kin on several company-related files without Daniela knowing. The woman praying for him was the same woman he was planning to destroy. Days later, Daniela's friend, Kioma, visited her. The 2 women sat in the living room chatting casually, until Kioma suddenly frowned. "Wait, Daniela, where exactly did Richard say he traveled to?" "Abroad," Daniela answered, "for a business contract." Kioma paused, then laughed awkwardly. "Abroad? Daniela, I saw your husband 2 days ago." Daniela smiled slightly. "What do you mean?" "I just came back from vacation in the next state. On my way coming back, I stopped by a mall to get something and I saw him entering the mall there. He didn't look like someone traveling." The smile disappeared from Daniela's face. "My husband?" "Yes." "No, that's impossible." Kioma looked serious now. "I know what I saw." Daniela's hands began trembling. "He told me he was abroad." The room suddenly felt cold. After a long silence, Kioma spoke carefully. "Call him." Daniela picked up her phone immediately. Her heart pounded heavily as the call rang. Richard answered warmly. "My love, I was just thinking about you." Daniela forced her voice to sound normal. "How's the contract going abroad?" Richard didn't hesitate. "Very well. This country is beautiful. The business people here are serious-minded." Another lie. Daniela closed her eyes slowly. "Oh, okay," she whispered. "Take care." She ended the call. The room became silent. Kioma leaned forward. "We can track his phone." At first, Daniela resisted. She still wanted to believe there was some misunderstanding, but the truth was waiting. Minutes later, they tracked the phone location. The results shattered her completely. The phone was in the next state, not abroad. That same evening, Daniela and Kioma drove there themselves. When they arrived, they parked outside a quiet residential building. They stayed inside the car watching. Then after some minutes, the gate opened. Daniela's world collapsed instantly. Richard walked out smiling beside another woman. Their fingers intertwined lovingly, and between them was a little girl. The child held both their hands happily like a perfect family. Daniela froze. Her breathing became heavy. Tears flooded her eyes violently. "No," she whispered. She suddenly tried opening the car door. "I'll kill him." But Keoma grabbed her tightly. "Daniela! Stop. That man used me. I know. He lied to me. I prayed for him. I gave him everything." Keoma held her as she cried uncontrollably inside the car. Outside, Richard kissed Sandro's forehead before driving away happily, unaware that his secret life had just been exposed. That night, Daniela cried until her body became weak. Keoma stayed beside her the entire night, comforting her gently. Around dawn, Daniela finally stopped crying. She wiped her tears slowly. Then her expression changed. Cold, controlled, dangerously calm. "Let's deal with them," she said quietly.